hear all the cool bird sightings that people are seeing. So, well, welcome everybody. I'm Jonathan Ringdahl. I'm the Coulee Region Audubon Society president. I appreciate you all taking the time to be here tonight. And if this is your first time attending one of our meetings, we're happy to have you here virtually. And how we always start off our meetings is by sharing what birds people are seeing. So if you are on mute and you want to share, take yourself off mute. If you're already unmuted and you've got a cool sighting you want to share with us, please go ahead and share.
I've got something cool, and it's not a house sparrow for a change. A friend here in West Salem contacted me about a bird that has been coming to her feeder. And she was trying to describe it. Her husband got a crummy cell phone picture. And initially I thought it was a blue-winged warbler. But I went over there today and I got to look at it. It is, of all things, a prothonotary warbler. And it's been coming to their feeder pretty much throughout the day, since Sunday, eating suet, dried mealworms, and they have an osier shrub in the back of their yard, and it likes to hang out in there. Crazy. There's no water. I mean, the closest water would be Lake Neshonoc, and it's not anywhere near there. So that's my cool sighting.
That's awesome, Quinn. Yeah, that's really cool. And interesting, I mean, it's not near water, but still, what a cool bird to be seeing around your yard. It's awesome. So, and then just if anybody's got another bird, feel free to just jump in, share.
I'll share. This morning by Rick's Lake, which is north of Alma, Wisconsin, on my way to work this morning, there were well over 300 pelicans in there, and they were really close. I mean, so if you wanted to get, I have a camera, and my camera is just, average. But if somebody had a really nice camera, it was incredible. They were within 100 feet of the shoreline there. And if you just stayed in your car, like I say, they were just busy throwing water up and splashing, and it was just an amazing sight. So
That is really cool. I work up in that area, so now I know what I'm going to be doing over the next few days. So thanks, Scott. That's super cool. Pat Wilson is on my screen. Do you have something, Pat?
Oh. No, I don't. Well, no, I just got back in town and haven't been out of the house much since I got back. So, and I don't have any prothonotaries in the backyard, so I'm kind of.
Yeah, it's all right. Welcome back, Pat.
Yeah.
What else are people seeing out there?
I am also seeing a lot of white pelicans over in Blue Lake by La Crescent, and also, of course, in Myrick Marsh. There's been a bunch of white pelicans, which is pretty cool. But as you all probably know, the annual Midwest crane count was last Saturday, and beautiful weather. I mean, it was above freezing and dry, just gorgeous day, hardly any wind. So we took some new friends out to our site, which is site 15 between West Salem and Bangor on the La Crosse River Marsh. And they just really enjoyed it. And we had a lot of activity. We had about 6 nesting pairs, unison calling, and about 42 cranes all together, which is pretty awesome. I mean, it's a cool site. One that Jeff Dankirk, if any of you know him, found many years ago. And but it was just great to introduce new people to birding and to something like that. They thought it was a really cool thing, watching the sun come up. And one of the guys is a photographer, and he got some great shots of cranes lit up by the morning sun as it came up.
Okay, I don't know if we can hear me. Okay.
Speaking of pelicans, I did see on Facebook that John Sullivan found a dead pelican in the La Crosse River Marsh that had He thought hit a power line or something while flying, but had it in his canoe and it pretty much filled the canoe. And the Fish and Wildlife Service wasn't interested in it, or the DNR, I guess.
I saw that one Saturday morning over by the big cottonwood. And I wondered what had happened to it. It's just kind of belly up in there, poor thing.
Speaking of pelicans, Joni Welda took some great photos of them feeding on bullheads. That was posted. You probably all saw that.
No. Well, my new life for San Diego was a black-throated magpie jay that's in a breeding escapee there, but that was fun. Really big jay.
Has anybody seen many bluebirds? I just have not seen many. And I usually get 3 or 4 pairs on my property, but have not seen any this spring yet.
We were down in North Carolina for 3 weeks. We saw quite a few bluebirds, but I don't know if that counts.
I just saw my first bluebirds yesterday over at New Amsterdam Grasslands. There was a pair. I heard one Saturday when my husband and I hiked up to Table Rock on some friends' property here. But yeah, I haven't been seeing them or hearing them where I usually do. So hope they're okay and just stalled out.
I mean, I've seen them as early as mid-March in previous years, but got the houses up and cleaned and everything, but no action yet. I do have a chickadee nest that's in a bluebird box though, so I didn't know they would use those, but I guess they do. It's a nice little mossy nest.
We have a robin, this is in Viroqua, that has some leucism features evidently. I can do a screen share. I did try to get a quick photo. If you're able to grant me that, I can show you what I was able to capture.
Let me get that for you, Chuck. Okay.
White. No, well, part white.
Ink. Well, I think I'm gonna have to make you host. Oh, it jumped on me there a second to the order changed. So then I made Jane host.
Under security.
For those of you that have been watching me, look off to my right. I'm showing the screenshot of the main street here in Wabasha. The fire trucks are setting up and they're hooking up to the fire hydrant. And so I've been a little nervous, like what's going on? So if you see me keep looking to the right, watching to make sure I can.
Oh my God. The fire trucks are, he's wondering what's going on
Yeah.
out his window. And they're hooking up their hoses to the fire hydrant on me right by the ecosystem.
Oh,
That's not good. Yeah.
Hopefully it's just a training exercise.
Hopefully.
I hope so.
Let's see. It's interesting how that jumped on me. And now, Jane, does it say you can, if you click on participants on the bottom of your screen, does it say?
Over here. Oh, I see it on the top. Participants.
go.
Click.
I found it, claim host, because it's nice that the order in the participants section jumps around. So I clicked on Chuck to make him the host, and then all of a sudden Jane is host. It's like, all right, that was nice of Zoom. Okay, Chuck, you should be good to go now.
I want to see that robin. Oops. Oh.
holy shit.
Huh?
You want me
Come on.
to-
Wow, that's cool.
Whoa.
That's cool.
Whoa. Who's that up in there?
No, I don't know. Somebody's supposed to.
Big bird.
You want me to turn this on?
Oh, Dan's
No.
on. Dan's on here now.
You can set-
Why don't you watch it?
Yeah, Dan Jackson's on.
Oh, I've seen this.
I know, it's kind of fun to see all the people that we haven't seen.
That was cool. Thank you for sharing, Chuck.
Yeah, I think it's staying around the neighborhood. I saw it for a few days. And there was some mating going on. So hopefully it's going to be nesting. And
Very cool.
maybe we can see what the young look like, right?
Yeah, that would be very interesting. Yeah. Cool, cool. Great. Does anybody else have any other sightings they would like to share?
I did the crane count 2 on Saturday, and it was a really neat morning with winnowing snipe. I think I had 4 great horned owls calling to each other, a barred owl, just all kinds of stuff. And then the cranes cranked up, the Canada geese fired up, so it was pretty special out there. Butterbutts are back in pretty good numbers in places. Fox sparrows are still around. I've got white-throated sparrows out here at my house that are calling a lot. So they're here. Phoebes have been around for a month. I'm sure they're not real happy with the crazy weather we've had. They don't look real, excited about anything. But so yeah, it's been. I haven't been birding much, but it's been fun when I do get out.
I have a non-birding observation. A neighbor stopped in the other day, and I had a dead deer carcass on my property. Oh, I don't know, I'm sure a couple months or so. But he drove by early in the morning and he saw a bobcat kind of chewing on it. I called one of the people in Viroqua, and evidently bobcats are pretty common now in Vernon County. I don't know if you've seen them, Dan, at all.
Joanne bought me a game camera. I think it's probably 2.5 years ago. So we had no idea we had bobcats until I hung that camera. And I would say over the last 2.5 years now, we've probably caught them on those cameras 10 times, including a female with 2 kittens.
Oh, wow.
Even a bigger surprise, this January, we had a fisher, which for Vernon County, we're pretty far south.
Yeah.
And I let one of the guys, Don Severson's son, Cale, is a biology tech for the DNR. And so I asked Don to talk to him about it and see, how prevalent they are. And I guess they've got them in like the Kickapoo Reserve and in the Wildcat in that area. They've had a few of them out there. So I guess that was a surprise to me.
Oh.
I haven't put it on mute. You know how to do the mute. Just turn that. Good, okay.
Non-birds, other things. I've had 4 species of butterflies so far. Cabbage whites and spring azures are now emerged and flying. And then of course the brushfoots that overwinter are flying. So I've seen morning cloaks and eastern commas. And then dragonfly wise, some of the migrants are here. So I've seen common green darners and variegated meadowhawks.
Cool.
And that's my goofy dog that's downstairs and thinking he's lost.
All good sightings, Dan. All good sightings. Good, cool. That's some interesting things, especially to hear about the bobcats and the fish. That's awesome. Love it. Does anybody else have any other sightings, any things they want to share? All right. Well, if there's nothing else, then we'll move into upcoming events.
Al,
Excuse me a second, John. This is Al Wernicke. Am I on or
Yes.
can you see the picture too?
No video, just audio.
come out here, Al. Do it here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait.
All right.
Here,
Yeah, hi, everybody. Just wanted to quickly say that Friends of Truckle Refuge is sailing.
Oh, we're getting some audio feedback.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, there you go. I will mute you and then we can just hear you on Jane's.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
muted now,
So if
too.
you'll unmute your Jane's iPad there, Al, then we can hear you. Let's see here. Okay. I just asked you to
Okay.
unmute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry to
All right,
delay.
there we
everyone
go.
here.
Now we can hear you, Al.
Okay, sorry for the delay. I just wanted to mention that Friends of Trumbull Refuge is having a few things for World Migratory Bird Day this year, which is going to be on Friday, May 7th. We're having Stan Tequila come down from Minneapolis area. I'm sure most of you are familiar with his books and a lot of different things. And he's going to do a Zoom presentation from the Owl Center without any audience. So we're going to try to get the Zoom going there. And then we are going to have a few bird hikes on Saturday, and Stan's going to lead a couple of hikes. But we're going to have to limit it to 10 people per leader, hike leader. And we are hoping to get 5 or 6 hike leaders there. If anyone's interested in leading a hike, they can contact Stephanie Edler, the acting refuge manager at the refuge. But we're looking forward to meeting Stan and at least getting some activity going there for World Migratory Bird Day. Everyone's going to be required to wear masks, and we're limiting the groups to 10 people. And that's all I had.
And on a similar note, I think Pat and I have been trading emails, and I think we're going to try to lead a few walks in the marsh and at Hickson. We would start, I believe it's May 4th. I'll be out of town next week, so we aren't going to try it that week. But again, so those will be posted. We're hoping to just keep numbers low, but if there's multiple leaders, if worst case, if we get a group, good sized group, we can just split up. And then I'm also planning to lead the trip to Wyalusing on the 15th. I'll be camping down there, and we'll meet everybody out by the entrance. It's at I think we normally meet at 6:30, I believe, isn't it? So anyway, so we've got a few things that we're going to try to do, assuming we can kind of keep the numbers under control.
Great. Thank you, Dan. That takes care of most of what's on the upcoming events. So we have our next meeting will be on Wednesday, May 19th at 7 p.m. and we will have Laura Erickson, ornithologist and author, and she'll be presenting her program, Into the Nest. So that will be a great program as well. And we are still planning for on June 19th at 6 p.m. for our potluck. So we will have an answer by our next meeting, whether or not we're still moving forward with that and how that's going to look. So we'll keep you all posted on that. And that is all the events that we have. If there's anything else anyone wishes to share as far as upcoming events, please let us know right now.
It's a question. Dan, is the Wyalusing trip on Saturday or Sunday? The 15th, did you say?
Helps to unmute. Yes, Saturday, the 15th.
Saturday. Thank you.
The we have a historical society in Viroqua here that are attempting to raise money, and I think we have talked about this in our board meeting for the chimney on the Historical Society building, as kind of across from the Dairy Queen and Highway 14 for chimney swifts. And so we're having a hot dog feed at the Nelson Agri Center, which is commonplace to try to raise some money. And I think we have talked about giving some, I think maybe we already have, haven't we, Jonathan and Dan?
I haven't sent the check because I don't know if we ever had an official vote, but I think we were planning to donate
Oh.
500, weren't we?
Yes, and I think they were only looking for about $1,250. So if they're gonna bring up, and who's the gal down in Madison? That's kind of she's kind of the chimney Swiss person. Can't think of her name offhand, but I'll get you her name, and we're gonna have kind of an event sometime this summer in the evening, counting them going down the chimney. And I know between Paul Hill and myself, ourselves, we've counted 200 to 300 that are in that chimney. So it's really good that the Historical Society is attempting to preserve it. They've got somebody already lined up to do the work, and I think they're going to start here in May pretty quick. I think half the money is coming from some other DNR or some other agency. So it's nice to see, something like that happens. They're not using the chimney at all. So it will be a nice event, but I'll keep you posted on when that happens.
I'm surprised they would start now and not wait until the end of the breeding season, because if they start in May, they're going to disrupt that whole thing.
Yeah, and I don't know much about it at all. That's what I was told about a month or so ago. Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know if I assume they start at the bottom and work work their way up. I don't know how. I have no idea how long. That's a big chimney. I don't know how long that's going to take, but they've got somebody lined up to do it. But I'll find that out for you.
I guess if they're working on the outside, it wouldn't hurt anything, but
yeah, and I'm sure they probably aren't going to be working on it at 8, 9 o'clock at night or 6 in the morning or so when they leave. So, but I don't know. I'm assuming they build their nest fairly soon, don't they, after coming back?
that would be my understanding. I mean,
I don't know
think
if they
they
use
model.
the same nests from year to year, or
I'm not sure.
but that might be a possible program for us, Jonathan or Mark or
All
Pat.
right, sounds good. Thanks, Roger, for keeping us informed of that, and we will make sure we keep that on our radar and keep passing that information out as more details about that fundraiser comes. So thank you, Roger. Does anybody else have any other events that would be good to share? All right. So, well, Zoom is causing my phone to overheat. I better hand this over to Scott quick then. It said it's going to close in 20 seconds.
I'll share my screen.
Yeah.
Can you enable it to allow me to share? Jonathan, are you still there? Is he frozen? There he is. He's
Okay.
over somewhere else.
I don't know. Did you get control, Scott?
It still says that's host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay. Well, okay. Are you able to share your screen now? Well, let's see. It says I'm still host. Let's see.
Yep.
Make you host. Okay. Change the host to Scott. Yes. I'm glad it did.
There we go.
It's telling me Zoom is causing it to overheat again. So hopefully that you're the host, that this is going to work.
Screen now.
We're
There's
there.
the Bison.
Yep.
Bison, yes.
Yep.
Yes,
Yes.
working.
All right. All right. Well, I will go ahead and just get going then, Jonathan. So far, I have not seen any smoke. The fire department is all still there. I snuck away there to call one of our employees just to make sure, because we do actually own the first 4 buildings there on Main Street that they're parked in front. And so I had my phone turned off for the meeting. So I wanted to make sure somebody within our organization knew that. But once again, thank you so much to La Crosse and Coulee Region Audubon for having me here tonight to share with some information with you about the Golden Eagle research and the research project that I've been involved with for a long time. But first, thank you so much for your support of the National Eagle Center over the years. I've recognized many folks out there that have been to the center before, so thank you for visiting us. We greatly appreciate that as a nonprofit and hope that you'll come back again. For those of you that have been watching the news, you may know that we are working on an expansion project, including those 4 buildings on Main Street that I just mentioned. We're going to be remodeling those. That'll be starting this fall in October. We're going to be remodeling some of those buildings, and also we're going to be doing the remodeling on the 2nd floor of the National Eagle Center. The offices are going to be moved out. They're going to be moved over across the alley, and there'll be new exhibit space on our 2nd floor. And part of that is to accommodate this huge collection that we've been given by this gentleman that you see on the screen here right now. His name is Preston Cook, who is from California, San Francisco. And for the last 30, 40 years, he's been collecting everything related to eagles. And I mean everything related to eagles. He has original John James Audubon prints of the eagles. He has original Roger Tory Petersons, and you name it. If it has something to do with eagles, he has collected it over the years. And right now we have just a very small fragment of that up on our 2nd floor for people to see. And as you can see, it's quite diverse, from stamps to coins to posters to Boy Scout things to Wonder Woman. What is Wonder Woman doing there? Well, you're going to have to come to the National Eagle Center and find out why Wonder Woman would be featured in an eagle collection. So come and find that out. But we also, everybody wants to come and see our eagles, and I have had an opportunity to work with many wonderful, beautiful bald eagle ambassadors over the years. Here's Harriet. Some of you may remember Harriet. She's the bird that's featured on the Minnesota Support Our Troops license plates because of her work with our veterans. She did pass away about 5 years ago, but she was 35 years of age when she passed away. And then Washaka is another cool bird that we've worked with. But for me, getting a chance to work on a daily basis for almost 9 years with a golden eagle was definitely a dream come true for me. And this is Donald, our golden eagle, who did pass away about a year ago from a stroke. But like I said, many wonderful years working with this ambassador golden eagle. Now, for me, I've been watching and studying golden eagles now for well over 25 years. I've had a fascination with golden eagles, but I've only been at the National Eagle Center now here since late 2006. But in my spare time, I was out looking and watching golden eagles just because it was fun to do, something that I really enjoyed doing. My love for golden eagles really started when I was a student up at Vermilion College up in Ely, Minnesota. And my professor there named Bill Teft would take students down to Hawk Ridge every fall for one of his wildlife classes. And I got an opportunity to visit Hawk Ridge and really fell in love with Hawk Ridge. And I would spend my weekends there. I would go down, take the 2-hour drive from Ely down to Duluth and spend the weekend there and hang out with Frank Nicoletti, who was the head counter there, who's now the head bander there. Spend time with him, absorbed a lot of cool information, and really just fell in love with hawks and eagles in particular. I'm guessing that most of you, by the audience that I'm looking at, probably have heard of Hawk Ridge, but for those that haven't, it sits right outside of Duluth, Minnesota. It's a ridge of land up along Skyline Drive. And so birds, in particular, in the past, it was mainly focused on raptors, but it's now focused on other birds as well. But raptors that have nested across northern Minnesota and parts of Canada, much further north, will start to move south in the fall, and they want to migrate to the southern areas for the overwintering. And when they do that, they want to migrate on winds that are going to push them to the south, and that's generally going to be winds out of the northwest. But when those birds get pushed up against Lake Superior here, they don't necessarily want to cross Lake Superior, not because they're afraid of water, but there's no thermal lift over water, and so they have to use a lot of energy to migrate to flap over the lake. So what they do instead is they funnel along the shoreline. Then Hawk Ridge itself is a ridge of land that creates another type of lift called orographic lift. Now, you're probably familiar with thermal lift, but orographic lift is when a wind or hits an object and creates an updraft, and birds will ride on that as well. So Hawk Ridge then is a great place to watch these birds funneling off of Lake Superior and then riding on the ridge as they get pushed by the winds to the south. So there are observers there on a daily basis in the fall. They also do a spring migration count from a different site, but in the fall, they're at the ridge there, and they're counting the raptors and also songbirds migrating by as well. They have, thousands of blue jays and robins and cedar waxwings and all kinds of other cool things. And so it's definitely a place to check out some fall. Now, also in the back that you don't see, there is banding areas where they are trying to lure some of these hawks in to try to bring them in so that they can then capture them. They can take some blood samples in some cases, measurements, and then they're going to put a little aluminum leg band on that bird's leg so that we can track that bird if it's ever found again, and we can get an idea of longevity and such. They often will bring some of those birds out from the back area. They'll bring them out, and if there's youth there, they'll often get an opportunity to release these birds, and that's a pretty cool experience for those youth to have that opportunity to hold one of these birds in their hands before releasing it into the wild. And of course, then some of the birds that do get released, and they have opportunities to adopt them, support Hawk Ridge, and somebody here is releasing that red-tailed hawk back into the wild again. Well, golden eagles also migrate by Hawk Ridge. In fact, they average about 150 golden eagles migrating by Hawk Ridge during the fall season every single year. Well, after graduating from Vermilion College, I immediately got a job working for the Minnesota DNR, working out of Rochester, Minnesota, working for a non-game wildlife. So working with Carner blue butterfly habitat restoration and goat prairie habitat restoration. A lot of cool things, Blanding's turtles, worked with a lot of cool things. And it was great. I had a wonderful opportunity to do that. But pretty soon summer went into fall. And as summer went into fall, I started thinking more about seeing those golden eagles up at Hawk Ridge. And I started thinking about that more and more. And I thought, I'm ready to go see some golden eagles, but I don't know of anybody down here. And so I started kind of going through a golden eagle withdrawal. I was like, what am I going to do? I want to see some golden eagles, but it's like 5-6 hours up to Ely and Duluth. And so what am I going to do? Well, I'd heard that there were some people, some bird watchers over the past in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s that had been seeing golden eagles in a couple of places in southeast Minnesota, western Wisconsin, in particular now near Whitewater State Park and the Whitewater Management Area, and then down in Houston, near Houston Money Creek along Highway 76 and County Road 17. So I thought, well, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to look and see if I see any golden eagles. And sure enough, I found golden eagles in that habitat. So as I looked, I thought, there's a lot of habitat up and down the river valley here that looks a lot like the habitat that I'm standing in right now. It's what we call the driftless area. So why aren't there golden eagles in other locations as well? If they're in this habitat near Whitewater that has the bluff country, and they're also in the bluff country habitat down by Houston, why aren't they in other parts of the driftless area as well? So I started looking and I started finding more and more golden eagles. Well, then I started to doubt myself because nobody had ever seen that many golden eagles in the area before. So I'm like, I don't know. Those young bald eagles, they do look a lot like golden eagles. So maybe I'm misidentifying them. So maybe I better get out my bird guide and take a look at that bird guide, pour through a little bit and make sure I'm making a correct identification. So I got my Peterson guide out, and sure enough, as I looked at the pictures, I'm like, yep, that is a golden eagle. I am making a correct identification. Then I turned into the back of my Peterson guide to look at the map in the back, and here was the map. It was like, oh, well, there's not supposed to be any golden eagles here, and so I must be wrong. And so, well, Jiminy Crickets, I don't know. So anyway, I thought, well, maybe there are only a couple of golden eagles actually overwintering here, and they're just really fast. So when I'm in one valley and I see golden eagles, and it takes me 25 minutes to drive to another valley and I see a golden eagle, for them, they're just flying over the tops of the bluff rather quickly, and I'm just double the same birds over and over again. So I decided what I wanted to do was get some friends out to get them out on the same day, do a survey to figure out how many golden eagles are actually hanging out. And so I started this survey over 17 years ago now to get people out on that same day. I knew, for example, You may recognize this area here. Here's Brownsville up here. La Crescent would be up here. Here's the Iowa border down here. Here's Caledonia. Where these stars are is where areas where I was seeing golden eagles. Here you can see some here and over here, but I couldn't be in all those locations at once. So I said, okay, let's get some of my friends out there to be in this spot and that spot at the same approximate same times, and let's see what we can find. So I asked some of my friends to go out and do some training. We made sure we were up on the identification skills, and we got out there and we started looking for the golden eagles, and we started finding more and more. In fact, the first year of the survey, as you can see here, we had about 24 observers count 21 golden eagles in southeast Minnesota and western Wisconsin. Now, we'll talk about the numbers, as you can see here, as they kind of go up and then down and then back up again. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But this last year's survey, first and foremost, I don't want to pick out people because I'll miss somebody, but there are at least 5, 6 people that are watching right now that have been a part of the survey. Some of you have been a part of that survey for many, many, many years. So thank you all for helping with the surveys over the years. I want you to pay attention to this year's survey. This year, we had over 174 observers out on the 3rd Saturday in January, covering 77 routes. 77 routes in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Iowa. Now that covered 47 different counties. That covers all the driftless area, which includes over 25,000 square miles. So 25,000 square miles of the driftless area is covered in the Golden Eagle survey. And as we're going to learn a little bit later, there are actually golden eagles in some other areas of the state as well. And so the survey areas are expanding into other areas of Minnesota and Wisconsin as well. But primarily at first, we were focused on the driftless area. So I should also point out that the observers spent over 533 hours on the survey day out looking for golden eagles, driving over 6,548 miles of backcountry roads looking for golden eagles. And you can see the numbers there, just a little over 124 golden eagles were sighted on this year's survey. Now you'll notice here, we had kind of a couple of low numbers here, but we had a couple of years, you may remember folks, that we had some fog. It was very challenging and very difficult to see much of anything, let alone a very elusive and hard to find golden eagle. And so that is one of the reasons why the numbers went down here. We had fog back to back here. But you can also see that the numbers do seem to be going up, at least over time they were. I don't think that the population is necessarily increasing. In the 25 years that I've been watching this, studying golden eagles here, I think the population has been pretty consistent. If anything, it might be declining slightly. We'll talk about that a little bit. But more importantly, the reason the numbers are going up is that there are observers getting better at knowing where to look. These birds are very challenging to find. And once observers know where they are looking and go back to those same areas, they have a much better chance of finding those birds over that time period. So I like to say that they have a very strong, tree and perch site fidelity, returning to the same branches, same trees year after year. As you can see, one golden eagle there and another golden eagle there. They use this same tree that I took this picture in for the past 20 years, the same tree and the same branches. They use them all the time over and over again. And so as observers get better at knowing where to look, they keep returning, like this gentleman down here, I'm not sure who that is, but that gentleman returning year after year knows where to look, more likely that those numbers are going to go up year after year. And so here he also gives you an idea of the, at least over the last couple of years, showing you the numbers of golden eagles. It's in blue, okay? Then the percentage now is versus adults versus juveniles. And so most of the population that we see on the survey day is primarily of adult, but we do see some juvenile birds that are in their first and second winters here, spending their time in the river valley. But we also, because those juvenile bald eagles do look very similar to golden eagles, we are definitely out there as well, looking for those birds as well. And so here are some numbers of our bald eagles over the years. At this slide here, I'll just show you that there again, the blue is showing you the total number of birds, of bald eagles, and then the green is the adult bald eagles, and then you can see the amount of juveniles is much less comparatively. Here is a little bit more up-to-date numbers. So for example, this year in 2021, we had over 1,403 bald eagles on survey day, which is absolutely incredible. Many of you in this group know of a time when we had less than 417 nesting pairs of bald eagles left in the entire lower 48 states. So to have over 1,433 bald eagles on one Saturday in a January in this area in the winter is pretty incredible. And all more incredible to that is, as we're going to look for a little bit, the golden eagles are not hanging out in the water. And so our survey routes are not near the water, they're out in the forested valleys. And so really shows you how many bald eagles overwinter here as well. In fact, this year we had, at the same time that we had the survey, 1,433 bald eagles. Also along the Mississippi River here in front of Wabasha, we had a 5-mile stretch. There were over 400 bald eagles just on that stretch of water alone, and that's not included in this number. So pretty success story for bald eagles. And then this is the other one that I'm actually quite proud of, and most people are like, you want people to not be able to identify the birds? As you can see here, in 2021, we had 93 different sightings that we could not determine whether it was a bald eagle or a golden eagle. And the reason I'm happy for that is I really want our observers to be 100% sure. And we all know there are times when you see a bird kind of go up and over the bluff and you're like, yeah, I think it's a bald eagle. I don't know. It's probably better to just say unidentified. And so that's the best way to do that. The other thing that I know many of you have done over the years is sent me pictures that you've taken. That's a great way for us to be able to take those unidentified and maybe be able to make those be identified. Now, as we're out there looking, we're also looking at other raptors as well. And so this year we had 480 red-tailed hawks on the survey. Most of those tend to be, I would say 80% of the ones that report them, 80% of those are adults of that population or more. Also see a substantial number of rough-legged hawks, 154 rough-legged hawks in this year's survey. Kestrels, I was happy to see after a couple of year low numbers for the wintering kestrels that the numbers were up this year. So that was a positive sign to see. I hope we continue to see those increased numbers in kestrels. As we all know, there was some concern for them, and there still should be. 1 year does not make a big difference, but it is a hopeful sign. And also we see other birds such as the peregrine falcons and merlins occasionally, Cooper's hawks, sharp-shinned hawks, generally not a lot of those. Same with the red-shouldered hawks and northern harriers. And occasionally we get some owls seen on the survey as well. Now, that is a lot of different kind of raptors that are seen on the survey. But what's really cool is that the survey has been showing more golden eagles in this area than had ever been reported before. And so we're really expanding our knowledge base on them. But the big question was, well, where are these birds coming from? Now, a lot of people know, and I'm going to ask you to ignore this blue, siren there. I'm going to ask you to ignore the blue there for a second right here. But gold eagles are primarily found in the Western United States. They're also found across the Northern Hemisphere, Northern Africa, Europe, and Asia. The gold eagles are found as well. And so here in North America, as I mentioned before, it's primarily from about the Missouri River and then westward all the way across the prairies and the potholes as you work your way towards the mountains and also down in the desert Southwest. In fact, the golden eagle is found down into the northern half of Mexico. The golden eagle is featured on the Mexican coat of arms. So it's found in quite a wide geographic area all the way up into Canada and Alaska as well. So a lot of people thought, many ornithologists, bird watchers believed that these golden eagles that were ending up down by Houston and Money Creek and Whitewater State Park were birds that were maybe just got off course, ended up against Lake Superior, pushed west, from the western United States, pushed up against Lake Superior, funneled by Duluth, Hawk Ridge, and then ended up down into southeast Minnesota, western Wisconsin, in the bluff country, where there was these little miniature mountain type habitat, spent the winter here, and then went back out west again to spend the summers. Well, a couple of years ago, back in 2007, I guess it was, I got a call from Mark Martell here, who was at the time working for Minnesota Audubon. And he and a couple of folks from the Minnesota DNR had been noticing the numbers that I'd been reporting, and were kind of curious about them and wanted to come down and visit. So they came down. They wanted to see some golden eagles. I took them out. This was my opportunity. We were out for about 2 to 3 hours, and we did not see any golden eagles. And I'm like, oh no, I'm in trouble. Here, they're really doubting all my data here right now. Well, in the afternoon, we were able to see quite a few, and they were very impressed and very intrigued and said, you know what, we had no idea there was this kind of population here. We need to get together here and form a partnership and study this population a little bit more. Let's learn a little bit more about it. And so we got together with the Audubon Center of Minnesota, Eagle Center, of course, and then Wisconsin DNR, Minnesota DNR, and the Fish and Wildlife Service, Winona District as well. And we decided we would form this partnership to study the population beyond what the survey was doing a little bit further. And so we decided that in order for us to do that, we need to capture a few birds, put some satellite transmitters on these birds to be able to track their movements, to actually find out where these birds are going to spend the summers. So thank you to Kira Henderson, non-game specialist there, man of many talents there with non-game wildlife in the state of Minnesota. He was able to find some money for us for these transmitters. Back then, these transmitters cost about $3,500 a piece for the transmitters, cost about $1,000 a year to get the information that these things would send to a signal into space to a satellite. And so thankfully he was able to get those for us. Now I will show you that on the back here, you'll see a glass panel, and that is a solar panel that will recharge an internal battery. And so in the past, you know, transmitters may have lasted about a year till the battery went dead. And you also had to follow them along in a truck with a big antenna on the top. Well, with the satellites, you can do all the work right from your computer in your office. And so anyway, with the battery in there, with the recharging, it may give you data for up to 4 to 5 years. Now, the battery that you see over here is not the battery that runs the transmitter. The battery there, the D battery, is there to give you an idea of the weight of the transmitter. So imagine picking up a D battery, putting in your hand, that is the weight of the transmitter. Now you've got it laid out next to a $100 bill there so you can see how big it is. And then also here, you'll see a leg band that we also put on the bird's leg as well, because this transmitter is attached with Teflon ribbon to the outside of the bird. And eventually that Teflon ribbon will degrade and the transmitter will fall off. And if the bird is ever found again, we want to be able to know more about that bird's lifespan by having that leg band on it. As I mentioned, that signal goes to a space satellite and then back to our office. Well, our first golden eagle we released back in 2009 was this bird right here. His name was Whitey, due to the whitish gold coloration of the back of his feathers there. This was a bird that I had actually been watching in the valley for about 6 or 7 years. And I'll tell you his story in a minute. But here you can see the transmitter sitting on the back of the bird. There's that Teflon ribbon that we talked about. It is just run around like a backpack, with a ribbon to the front of the bird, and then it's tied to the front. And this bird has just had that transmitter put on, so it really stands out now. But as the bird flies and moves, that transmitter will work its way down close to the body, and you won't even see the transmitter at all at that point. Well, the first question was, okay, how are we going to capture these golden eagles to lure them in? And so the first thought was, well, you know, with bald eagles, we use dead deer carcasses, and we put them out there in the landscape, and the bald eagles just come in and start feeding on them. So maybe we should try that. Okay, so we found some dead deer, cut them up into pieces there, throw them into buckets, and then we would carry them up onto the hillsides. And up on the hillsides, then we would also then put some trail cameras there well, here we are making them look more appetizing by cutting them open so the eagles could have easy food source. And by the way, it is very hard work to saw open a frozen deer. Make sure you cut them right away before they freeze. Otherwise, you get a workout. So anyway, we put the trail cameras up on the trees then to see what was coming in, see if any golden eagles were coming in. We got thousands and thousands of images of things coming in. Crows, red-tailed hawks, rough-legged hawk, bald eagles, lots and lots of bald eagles coming in to feed on our carcasses. We had things coming in at night to feed on them, like a skunk and a raccoon. We had a white-tailed deer coming in to feed on them. A white-tailed deer coming in to feed on them? Did you just say that, Scott? Yes. The deer was not eating the deer. It was eating the undigested corn in the dead deer's stomach. Just to goes to show you where they're going to try to find food when they can. But very few images were of golden eagles coming in to feed on those carcasses. So we said, okay, what else then is on the menu for the golden eagles? What are they eating out there if they're not feeding on these dead deer? Well, over the years, I primarily seen them feeding on, first and foremost, fox squirrels, number one, gray squirrels, number two, and then eastern cottontails. So we said, okay, we got the permission from the DNR, the permits that we needed to utilize those as prey items to lure in the golden eagles. We put them out in the appropriate habitat and we caught birds. Yeah, we caught 27 red-tailed hawks. And we did not want to catch red-tailed hawks. We were trying to catch golden eagles. And every time that we caught a red-tailed hawk, by the way, we'd get out there and set these traps in the morning in the dark. Then we'd go sit in our blind and wait for sunrise. And then we'd wait for some bird to come in. And then if we had a red-tailed hawk come in, we would then have to go release that red-tailed hawk from our trap. Well, when we did that, we were basically letting the golden eagles in that valley know that, hey, this is a trap, guys. Don't come anywhere near this area. So we said, okay, this is not working for us. We need to think about something else that is not on the menu of the red-tailed hawk. Now, speaking of the menu of the red-tailed hawk, you bird folks, I think will appreciate this photo right here. Take a look at this red-tail. This red-tail came in to feed on a rabbit that we had in our trap. And what I want you to really pay attention to is here, this big bulge up here is the crop. Now, many of you know that the crop is a widening the esophagus that holds excess food. It can hold in an eagle 2 to 3 pounds. In a red-tailed hawk, half that or less. And you can see that this bird has a very full crop, had just eaten a very good meal. Yet when he saw another opportunity for food, that rabbit in our trap, he went in to catch that. So it just goes to show you, don't ever pass up a free meal. Sorry for that. All right. So anyway, what else then was on the dinner plate for the golden eagle that the red-tailed hawks might not go after? Well, one of the birds that I see them occasionally going after are wild turkeys. And so we said, okay, maybe we should try to use wild turkeys. When we talked to the Minnesota DNR, they said we could not use wild turkeys for that. But somebody within the organization said, you know what? There is a species of turkey called the black Spanish, which is a domestic turkey that looks a lot like a wild turkey. And so what we did is we had a young student raise these over the spring and summer for us. And in the fall, the turkeys were ready for us to use to lure in some golden eagles. And we did capture a golden eagle right outside of Wabasha here, this particular bird right here, using that method. But the first golden eagle that we released, that whitey, was actually a bird that came in injured. This is a bird that came in looking like this. This was a bird that was brought in by a local DNR officer that said they were bringing in a juvenile bald eagle. Remember, everybody makes mistakes. They can look very similar. Said they had a juvenile bald eagle that had been caught in a leg hold trap that had been properly placed, but unfortunately this eagle had put his foot down into the trap and unfortunately caught in that trap and had 2 gaping wounds on each side of its leg. That bird was brought here. We then transferred him to the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota, where they were able to do some amazing work, eventually stopping that bone from dying back. They're able to do some skin grafts and some feather follicle grafts from other areas of the body and repair that leg. And then we were able to release that bird with a transmitter eventually. And another bird that we released was a bird that was found over by Fairchild, Wisconsin, that was flying over Highway 10. And it was flying low over a truck. And a truck went by. When that truck went by, the eagle got caught in the draft of the vehicle and got slammed into the pavement of Highway 10. Now, luckily, that golden eagle had just eaten, and so it had a very full crop. Remember the crop we talked about? So when it was slammed into the pavement, that is what hit the ground, and that meal actually helped cushion the bird, so it didn't have any major injuries. And so we were able to release it. And we know that all of that story because these two young men were going turkey hunting that day, and they witnessed this. And so they pulled over, got the eagle safely off the side of the road, called the DNR, waited for 2 hours, didn't go turkey hunting, waiting for the DNR to come and get this bird. And thankfully they did, because that's what the bird then we released with a transmitter. There that one goes right there. So Hawk Ridge actually caught a bird for us as well. Here you can see one of those birds right there with the transmitter on there getting ready for release. We also had a bird over by Wapaka, Wisconsin, that was coming into a deer carcass at a local landowner's farm. Let us know about that. We said, hey, if it keeps coming in after a couple of days, let us know. We're glad to try to lure this bird in and trap it. And so we did. So we were able to release that bird that we called Jeanette. Here is an amazing image. You're thinking about, okay, yeah, I can imagine a golden eagle going after a dead deer carcass, but a live deer, I've actually seen it a couple of times myself. Got a couple of trail cam images as well of golden eagles chasing after white-tailed deer. Now, in all the cases that I've seen, in this case in particular, they tend to be younger birds in their first couple of years of life, kind of like teenagers, right? Yeah, I can handle that. That's no problem, right? But eventually they realize maybe that's a little too big for them and they have to go for something a little bit smaller, and that happens to be the turkeys. So here is Whitey, the first bird we released. There he goes with the transmitter. And a total of 6 different golden eagles released as part of our project here. And the question was, okay, where are these birds going to spend the summers after wintering here? Are they heading out west like everybody thought? Is that where they're going? Well, we're learning that is not the case. They may be going a little west, as you can see here, but primarily they're heading into the northern parts of Canada. Here is the Arctic Circle, would be up on the upper part here of the screen. Here we've got Churchill, Manitoba, would be right over in this region here. Polar bears, you think about Churchill, kind of gives you an idea. Here's Northwest Territories, Great Slave Lake, Nunavut up here. That is where the golden eagles are spending the summers and raising their families, and then migrating back into Minnesota and Wisconsin into our area for the winter. Now, remember that bird that was coming into that deer carcass over by Wapaka, a bird that we called Jeanette. Here's Wapaka over by Stevens Point. We tracked this particular bird, Eagle 45, Jeanette, to her nesting spot here in Nunavut, which was 2,326 miles from Wapaka to her nesting site. We tracked her to that particular spot for 4 years back to back. For 3 of those years, she arrived back at her nesting site in Nunavut on exactly April 3rd, 3 years in a row, the exact same date. Pretty amazing. The last year we tracked her there, that was April 6th, so it's 3 days behind schedule. But just think of that distance they travel to arrive on pretty much the exact same date. That's pretty amazing reliability. I mean, the airlines, they could learn something from that kind of reliability, right? Well, here are the little red octagons that you see here. These are areas where golden eagles that we've released with satellite transmitters. There's Jeanette, we just talked about Jeanette, have released those birds from this area. And then this is the areas where they have spent the summers, including in areas of this part of Canada as well. So much larger and much broader population than anybody ever really realized. When we started the conversation today, I talked about the driftless area, that these birds were spending habitat in the wintertime, during the wintertime. Well, then along came Jack. Jack is the bird from Hawk Ridge. Now, he's named Jack because Jack Hofsland was the gentleman who kind of started the Hawk Ridge organization up there. So it's a fitting name to name this golden eagle Jack. Jack was caught at Hawk Ridge as he was migrating by Hawk Ridge. He came into one of those pigeons at that banding station like I showed you at the beginning, He came in to capture a pigeon. He saw that as a food source, as lunch on his migration, went in there, and there were mist nets there that caught the bird. People in the banding station went out there and then grabbed the bird, held onto the bird because we had a transmitter that we were able to put that on that bird. That bird was released then right from the ridge and then flew down into Wisconsin here, then back over towards Dubuque, Iowa. Spent about a week over near Dubuque, Iowa. And I thought, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's driftless habitat. I bet that's where that bird is going to spend the winter. Nope, that bird was just fueling up because then he continued on. Let me get my mouse here. Oh, there it is. He continued on down into southern Missouri and northern Arkansas. And we tracked him there to that area of Missouri and Arkansas for the next 3 years into that area. Now, that particular bird spent some time, as I said, up here above the Great Slave Lake. That's where he nested. About 4 years ago, we lost transmission from him, so his satellite transmitter was no longer working. But this past March, somebody here in Saskatchewan happened to be hiking in the woods and came across a dead golden eagle. On that golden eagle was no satellite transmitter anymore, but on its leg was a leg band, and it was Jack, the bird from Hawk Ridge. And so we were still able to get that bird a couple more year history. That bird lived a couple of more years. So pretty fascinating information. Also, the folks up at Camp Ripley in Minnesota, which is a military installation, have also released now 3 different golden eagles with satellite transmitters. We loaned them one a couple of years ago, and since that time, they bought their own. And so we're learning that even in north central Minnesota, in the forested habitat, well away from the driftless area, the golden eagles are spending the winters there as well. Now, I'm a part of an organization of researchers and folks that are studying golden eagles in the eastern United States. And a couple of years ago, we met in Mackinac City and had a conference. And we determined that in the eastern United States, so I should back up. I should point out that all these lines that are on this map, these are all tracking lines of golden eagles that have been tracked in this part of the eastern United States. You can see a few over here in our area, but some of our birds that are not on here are birds that have went off the map over here that I just showed you. So it kind of shows you how much extensive the population is. But some folks out in the eastern states, they've been getting some money to study them out there because of wind turbine development and things like that. So they put a lot of money into tracking. So they've had hundreds of golden eagles that they've released out there with satellite transmitters. So here you can see the tracking devices. So based on the tracking numbers and sites such as Hawk Ridge and Mackinac Straits and Hawk Mountain and other hawk migration spots and the research that we put together, we estimate that there are about 5,000 golden eagles that overwinter in the lower 48 states. So once again, this is 5,000 birds that most people had no idea were even wintering in the lower 48 states. So when I say that, we're talking from about the Missouri River east. And those are birds that overwinter here in the lower 48 states and then migrate back into Canada for the summer for the nesting period. Also interesting, here's a bird that was released down in Kentucky. And this is a very interesting bird that I'd like to share with you. This is a bird that was released down by the Bernheim Forest, which is south of Louisville in Kentucky. And a couple of years ago, they released this one bird here, and here's his tracking here in blue. Well, a couple of years later, they saw this bird always typically hanging out with another bird, a female, because of her size. She was so much larger. So they decided that they could try to capture her. They would like to do that. So they were able to capture that bird. That bird then was fitted with a transmitter. And the big question was, do they migrate together? We know, because I've observed, and I know many of you have observed golden eagles spending the winter together in these valleys in the bluff country. We see the male and female hanging out in the same valley. Maybe they migrate together. That was always a big question. Well, we were able to capture both the male and female together here in Minnesota, Wisconsin, but they did in Kentucky. And here's what they found out. They go 2 different ways. The male, one we talked about before, he goes up by Hawk Ridge, heads west around that side of Lake Superior, and goes up into the breeding grounds up here near Churchill, Manitoba. The female, she goes on the other side of the Great Lakes, goes to the Mackinac Straits and goes up into the same area in Churchill, Manitoba to spend the summer. So they don't migrate together, but they do winter together, and then they do nest together in the same area. So pretty cool information that we're learning on golden eagles. And we've got a couple years data now, fall and winter data of these birds taking similar paths into those same areas. So pretty cool information. Here is another kind of more detail. This is more, this is from 2009, I guess, but once again, showing some of that path work. Ooh, I'm not sure why that's not showing up real well. I'm guessing it's not showing up real well on your screen either. So I'll just kind of describe it. A couple of years ago, I had a research student from St. Olaf that was interested in doing some stable isotope analysis. I won't get real into the details of stable isotope analysis, but one of the things they can do by checking feathers is they can check where the bird was developing those feathers at the time those feathers were developed, and they can base that on latitude, we'll say it that way. So what was interesting is that we got the permits then that allowed us to go to a couple of different sites where I knew that golden eagles spend the overnight hours, where they roosted overnight. So we would go there in the daytime and look for feathers on the ground. And then the researcher then from St. Olaf then took those feathers and did this isotope analysis. Well, I also went to the Minnesota Bell Museum and got specimens of golden eagles from the late 1800s that were there, and got feather samples from them. And what they did is they did the analysis on them as well. What's interesting is the area in the black here is where the golden eagles are primarily historically coming from, but here is where they're coming from today. So it shows you that even back in the late 1800s, we had golden eagles coming to this area from these northern parts of Canada. So it's kind of validating to see that. And so those maps that used to look like this, those maps are now looking more like this as we're updating that information on golden eagles. One of the habitats that golden eagles tend to spend a fair amount of time near is what we call the goat prairie habitat, or the bluff prairie. You may hear them call them upland prairies as well. They're less than 1% of the world's dry bluff prairies remain today. The majority of them are right here in the driftless area where we live and reside and bird in. And the golden eagles, I think, rely on that habitat for a couple things. One, once again, orographic lift. As that wind hits that bluff, it creates an updraft. They can ride on that. There are different textures within that bluff. That's going to create thermals. There's an opportunity for thermal lift there as well. But more importantly, I think they're utilizing it for finding their food. But before we talk about that, people that might not be familiar with that term goat prairie, I want to make sure they've heard that term. As I mentioned before, it was also called a bluff prairie or dry prairie, but I like the term goat prairie. Historically, when the settlers first arrived here, they had their livestock graze the hillsides, and the goat and the cows were the only ones that get to the lower parts of the bluffs. But the goats were the ones that could get to those very steep hillsides that are on the south and west facing sides of those slopes. And so they call them goat prairies. Now, golden eagles, I think, use that habitat for thermal lift and orographic lift, but more importantly, for accessing prey. Imagine there's a wild turkey out feeding in the open here. That golden eagle can come along the backside of the bluff, up and over, and catch that out in the open. But as we've stopped fire in the landscape, whether it was lightning strikes or Native Americans who were setting fire in the landscape for prey acquisition in areas, we have seen a challenge in the environment where we have taking over, choking out that habitat. In particular, here we have red cedars that are really choking out a lot of these goat prairies. And so now you can imagine a wild turkey out feeding in the open has lots of chance to find cover to reach before that golden eagle can catch it. So thankfully, we understand more and more about the bluff prairie habitat, and we're doing restoration work up and down the river valley, as many of you have seen and observed in this area, down towards Viroqua and beyond. And so they're returning fire to the landscape. They're doing prescribed burns, habitat restoration, and we're getting that goat prairie habitat back again that is so important to so many different species of wildflowers and grasses and things like that. I won't go through all the different types, but butterflies is, I know many of you, Dan can probably figure out what that one is there. And lots of different butterflies and pollinators, unique, some of them only to those driftless bluff prairie habitats. And of course, there's animals such as badgers. Talked about a badger earlier today, and of course, birds. Most of you know your birds, meadowlarks and bobolinks, and anybody, lark sparrow, and skinks, and even rattlesnakes rely on that habitat. When we think about that bluff country habitat, most of that in, for example, Buffalo County, where I live, most all of bluff prairie habitat is privately owned. It's on private land. And so when landowners are approached by Wisconsin DNR or other folks that are trying to approach them to talk to them about trying to restore some of that bluff prairie habitat, you may talk about butterflies and skinks, and they may not be too interested. And if you mention rattlesnakes, well, you mentioned rattlesnakes, that's what happens. The door gets shut in your face. They don't really understand the role that rattlesnakes play, because rattlesnakes can cause fear. But golden eagles also utilize that same habitat, and golden eagles are kind of good looking birds, and it kind of intrigues people, and they're drawn into them. And so we start to open the doors to another species that relies on that habitat, besides something that they may not have heard of, like a skink or a skipper, a butterfly, but a golden eagle they're intrigued by. And so it helps bring attention to a habitat that definitely needs our help. Another thing that's really cool to hear and know about is there are a couple of different organizations. I know one in Minnesota where they are goat farmers that basically lease out their goats to go out to goat prairie habitat and help to get rid of the vegetation there, the stuff that wanted to be removed, and restore that habitat again. And so they're actually using goats on goat prairie habitat, which is really pretty cool to think about. So it's important wintering habitat. The golden eagles that winter here rely on us for good winter habitat in order to get back to the breeding areas in Canada in good shape. And so we have to have good winter habitat here. As we often think about habitat, we often think about birds, for example, such as we're all getting ready for, excited for the hummingbirds and things like that to be coming back to our backyards. But we think about those birds that spend that time in we call them neotropic migrants, that spend their winters down in Central America, down into South America. Birds such as hummingbirds and our orioles and our rose-breasted grosbeaks and thrushes and warblers. And there's a cerulean, and there's that prothonotary that's at that feeder. There's not that one, but there's a prothonotary and scarlet tanagers. And so these birds that we share with those areas to the south of us, we're concerned about that habitat down there, as well as we should, because some of these birds are flying, over 4,000 miles down to South America, back to Minnesota and Wisconsin. And so we're concerned about that habitat down there, and we should be as Audubon groups and bird watchers. And that's that habitat down there. But we have a bird, the golden eagle, that comes to Minnesota and Wisconsin and is relying on us here for good winter habitat in order to get back into the breeding season up in Nunavut, for example. And so we need to be concerned about that winter habitat. And when we first started talking about this project years ago, Carol Henderson from the Minnesota DNR said, you know what, we don't ever think about winter habitat management. We really don't think about that. And so the golden eagle has really opened that door to think about birds that rely on winter habitat. It's not just nesting habitat, it's wintering habitat as well. A couple of years ago, I was at a conference with Mark Martell, and we were talking with some folks about the Golden Eagle project. And we mentioned that we were doing this project, and we talked about the transmitter locations of one of our birds up in Nunavut. And one researcher said, I'm going to be up in that area of Nunavut this coming summer. He said, if you give me the coordinates, I'd be glad to fly by and take a couple photos so you can get an idea of what the habitat was. So this is the habitat coming from, remember Jeanette, the bird that we talked about that came back to that same location 3 years in a row? This is Jeanette, what she looked out upon, her habitat up in Nunavut. Here is the nesting rocky escarpment where she was nesting. And so right where the blue arrow is, I know this is kind of hard to see, but right where the blue arrow is where her nest is. And that is, in fact, when we zoom in on the picture, we can actually see a golden eagle perched there, and it might have even been Jeanette, the bird from Wisconsin, sitting near her nest. So pretty cool information that we're learning on golden eagles. But I also wanted to end the program tonight by sharing a little bit of information with you. I know many of you have attended my training sessions, but it's always good for a refresher. And those that haven't, I wanted to share a couple of tips that you could use in looking for golden eagles next winter. Because remember, they arrive in mid to late October, typically here until late February and March. That's the adults. And they're the ones that are reliable on territories. But you can see golden eagles even up until this time of the year. In fact, I just saw a Facebook post today of somebody up in Minnesota that had a nice photo of a juvenile golden eagle up in Minnesota. And so we can still expect to see golden eagles migrating through this area, but it's tend to be juvenile birds, younger birds that are not on breeding territory, because those birds that are on breeding territory, they're getting ready to start nesting up in those areas on the Arctic tundra right now. So first and foremost, when we're looking for the golden eagles, we have to remember habitat, habitat, habitat. If we are near water, we are looking at juvenile bald eagles, okay? Remember, juvenile bald eagles in their first year of life look very similar to a golden eagle, and the golden eagles are not feeding on fish. In the 25 years that I've been watching and studying golden eagles, only on one occasion have I seen a golden eagle within 30 feet of the Mississippi River. When they're here, they're out in the valleys, out in the forested valleys, as we've been describing so far tonight. So big brown eagles along our lakes and river bodies, those are going to be juvenile bald eagles. Now, those juvenile bald eagles, as I said before, do look a lot like golden eagles, but if it's near water, remember the habitat. If it's near a beach, you're probably looking at a bald eagle. The golden eagles are not interested in the beaches. Next thing we're going to look at is if we can see the bird, we're going to look at the legs. We look here at the lower part of the leg here of the bald eagle. They are bald, okay? Now, bald eagles don't have bald heads. They have lots of feathers on there, but in Old English, B-A-L-D-E meant white. Used to be called the bald-headed eagle, which meant white-headed eagle. We changed the meaning to bald to something else, and now that doesn't make much sense. But what I want you to remember is that bald eagles do have bald legs. The lower part of the leg is bald. Because they are in the family of fish or sea eagles, which there are several around the world, and they all share this characteristic, they have bald legs. Because they're dipping their legs in the water all the time, they don't want to have feathers there. They're going to get wet. So they have bald legs to protect their legs from freezing water, for example, and freezing those feathers, so the water can run right off. So bald eagles have bald legs. The golden eagles belong to a different family of eagles called the booted eagle. Booted, or you'll remember this, feathered, okay? Because on the lower part of the leg here, there is feathers there. If we go back to the bald eagle, that lower part of the leg is bald. The golden eagle has feathers that go all the way down, meaning booted eagle. And there are several species of booted eagles around the world. You may be familiar with the wedge-tailed eagle from Australia. They all have the same characteristic. They have feathers that go down their legs. They are primarily feeding on mammals and birds that have sharp teeth, sharp claws that could actually hurt them. So by having feathers there, that helps protect them from being scratched or bitten while they're killing their prey. And they're also not dipping their legs in the water, so they can afford to have feathers there. So if you look at the legs, the bald eagles have bald legs, the golden eagles have feathered legs. Here we have a golden eagle. You can see their feathered legs of a golden eagle. Bald eagles, though, in that first year of life do look a lot like golden eagles. They have all dark brown heads. They have these dark brown eyes and these big dark brown beaks that I want you to pay attention to. Because in that first year of a bald eagle's life, that beak is very dark, and it's dark throughout its entire length. Now that beak is eventually going to become yellow as an adult at about 5 to 6 years of age. But until that time, it's going to be varying shades of yellow and black. Remember that. The golden eagle's beak, no matter its age, is always going to be the same. It's going to look the same. It's going to be dark at the tip, then bluish gray, and then yellow. So once again, dark at the tip, then bluish gray, and then yellow. Or on the bald eagle, that beak is all dark. It's all dark all the way through. And as it ages, as I mentioned, they'll get more yellow in there but it won't have the definite pattern of blue and then gray and then yellow as we have in the golden eagle. Here is another picture of a golden eagle. There you can see that beak there, much smaller for one, which is hard to tell size when you have nothing to compare it to. But what I do want you to notice is, once again, dark at the tip, then bluish gray, and then yellow. Also, golden eagles get their name from the golden brown feathers on the back of their head. We call that the nape. The nape of the head of the golden eagle has those golden brown feathers. Now here is a bald eagle, no golden nape, and more importantly, notice that big dark beak, and that beak is big. Okay, now we have, oh, who's that? I hope you all recognize Jimmy Durante. What was Jimmy Durante known for? Not for his dancing or being a nice guy, a big schnoz. He had a big old schnoz, right? Well, the bald eagles are the Jimmy Durantes of the world. Look at that big old schnoz up there, right? That's a Jimmy Durante schnoz if I've ever seen one. There it is. The golden eagle's schnoz is much smaller in size, much more like Michael Jackson's schnoz, maybe 1985 to 88. The bald eagle's beak is much larger. Here, as I mentioned earlier, that beak will eventually become yellow, but as a juvenile, it'll be all dark, and there'll be varying shades getting up to that yellow over time. Once again, golden eagle with the dark tip, bluish gray, and then yellow, and the golden nape. That golden nape can vary quite a bit in coloration. Sometimes it really stands out. Sometimes it can be lighter in color, but there'll always be gold on the back of the nape, and then that tri-colored bill. Once again, tri-colored bill, dark the tip, bluish gray, and then yellow, and a golden nape. Now, here we can see a golden eagle in flight. We can see that golden nape right there. Now, we really can't see the color of the beak, but we can see the golden nape. We can also see this leading edge of the wing, which often is tinged with this gold coloration as well. Bald eagles rarely ever have that in that particular spot. So a bird with a golden nape, that golden leading edge of the wing, golden eagle right there. Here we have a bird that has some golden coloration here, but what does it have? It has bald legs. So young bald eagles can have some golden coloration in a variety of spots, even sometimes on that leading edge of the wing that I just said they typically don't have. So once again, you always want to use more than one field mark, but here we can see the bald legs. We're going to look at another field mark in a minute. Here's another picture of that young bald eagle, all dark beak, no golden nape, and bald legs, but it does have some golden brown feathers there. This is the bald eagle, and it's on a beach. Here is a golden eagle. Notice the golden nape right there, that golden nape, and a little bit of that golden leading edge right there. Another golden eagle, we can see that golden sometimes wraps around the side as well. The other thing to think about, and I know a lot of people, when you talk to people that are not necessarily bird watchers, you will hear this as you're out bird watching. You know, they'll say, well, yeah, I saw a golden eagle out the other day. And I know it was a golden eagle because it was so much bigger than the bald eagle that it was sitting next to. Well, in fact, the bald eagle and the golden eagle are about the same size. In fact, if I had to say, I'd say the golden eagle overall appears a little bit smaller. It's slimmer proportions. And so it overall just seems a little bit smaller in size, where that bald eagle is very big and bulky. But what we got to remember is that there are differences in the size of the sexes. So here we have a juvenile bald eagle that happens to be a female sitting next to an adult male bald eagle with a white-headed tail, but more importantly, it's much smaller in size because it's a male. Remember, in eagles, the females are larger. So in the past, we've often been misled that, oh, those big birds must be golden eagles. But in fact, what we were probably looking at is just a juvenile bald eagle in its first year of life next to one of its parents, possibly, which is a smaller male. Here is a golden eagle, beautiful shot of a golden eagle with that golden leading edge that I've talked about, and the golden nape. There are some other things with the way they hold their wings, but we're not going to get into that tonight. I don't want to keep you here all night. I wanted to keep you awake as long as I can. So we'll get to those some other time. But here is a golden eagle. golden nape, dark the tip, bluish gray, and then yellow. Once again, dark the tip, bluish gray, and then yellow, golden eagle. I like to show this. This is where the money is. Now, there's not a treasure out there, so don't go looking for it. It's not the lost treasure. What I put that money up there for is to show you where to look for golden eagles. So when you're out in the bluff country and the forested valleys looking for golden eagles, this is the line of area that I typically see them perching in. They don't perch in the trees down in the open area. Rarely do they perch in the tops of the trees up here. Rarely in the trees down here. Almost always they're perching within this little line right here. Okay. And so that is where I typically tell people to look. That's the area to focus looking for golden eagles. Interesting thing. I've been noticing that for years. And I often kind of wondered, well, why are golden eagles utilizing that particular line in the bluff habitat? I thought maybe it was because it was a good spot to be able to look out looking for turkeys or prey out in the open area without being seen, because you're within the bluff line, so you really blend in, almost looking like a squirrel nest or something up in the trees. I think that may be part of it. But more importantly, remember I mentioned the folks out east that are doing work with transmitters as well. And they've been doing a lot of work with trying to figure out where the birds utilize the most lift as it relates to wind movement. So it relates to turbine placement. And one of the things that they found is that the greatest amount of orographic lift for a bird to obtain is right about this angle of the bluff. So if we were to do the math, this line right here is where the bird is going to get the greatest amount of orographic lift without getting too much turbulence going into it or having to work to get up into it. And so it's the greatest opportunity to take advantage of a free ride. And so when you see prey, you can jump right off of your perch and get right into that line of air that'll take you to where you want to go. So that's great, folks. You're probably telling me, yeah, Scott, if we can see an eagle that close, yeah, we can probably make an identification like that too. But usually when I'm out in the field, it's looking something like this, right? I'm sure you've all experienced seeing a bird high in the sky like that. Well, maybe it's not quite that bad. Maybe it's more like this. But even like this can be pretty challenging. But if you have a camera or binoculars, we can zoom in, and there are some things that we can see to help us confirm whether it's a juvenile bald eagle or a golden eagle. And these will be the last tips that I'll focus on for you here tonight. So here we have bald eagles up on the top, juveniles, and then here we have juvenile golden eagles down here, and then here we have an adult. Now we all know the adult bald eagle with the whitened tail, but these are younger bald eagles right here. Now you'll notice that golden eagles in the younger stages have these patches of white in the outer part of the wing, out near the wrist. Okay, bald eagles, excuse me, may also have white in the outer patch of the wing, out near the wrist as well. But bald eagles always have white somewhere else as well, and that's right here in what we call the axillaries. Many of you are bird watchers. You've probably heard that terms axillaries before, but a lot of my guests that I share information with have never heard that term. So I tell them it's the wing pits. It's their wing pits. It's where the arm, where the wing meets the body. So bald eagles have white in the wing pits. Golden eagles do not. So that is key to look at when you see a younger looking bird that has white in the outer part of the wing. Where is that white? So here is a golden eagle with the white in the outer part of the wing. Notice there is not white near the body. Now, young bald eagles can sometimes have tails that are banded white and black as well. So that's not always reliable because sometimes those tails can look similar. What is reliable is where that white is. Sometimes that white can appear on the upper surface of the wing as well. Here is then a juvenile bald eagle. I'm hearing you all say that. Juvenile bald eagle, because where is the white? Yes, there's white out here, but more importantly, it's in the wing pits. It's in the wing pits, so that's a juvenile bald eagle. Here we have another one. Notice the white is in the outer part of the wing, so it is a golden eagle. I also throw in this picture to show you, look at how different that white is in this bird's wing pits, or out in the wing near the wrist, excuse me, compared to this bird, how that patch is differently shaped. I often will use this to help me identify different golden eagles that may see in the same day by the shape or the pattern of that white in the wing. That's why I always encourage my surveyors to take pictures of younger golden eagles, because then if you see a younger golden eagle later on the day, you might be able to determine whether it was the same one or not. Here then is a bald eagle interacting with a juvenile bald eagle because it's got white in the wing pits. And we also learned that it has a big dark beak as well. Here then is a juvenile bald eagle. So the bald eagle has the white in the wing pit. How I hope you'll remember that is a bald eagle is our nation symbol. And as our nation symbol, it probably should wear a little deodorant, right? So it puts the deodorant on and it makes those white patches there underneath the wing for the bald eagle. Also, the bald eagle is our nation symbol, right? And so it should have a big head as well. So bald eagles have big heads. They have as much head sticking out in front as they have tail sticking out behind. Okay, so it has a lot to represent. So they really should have a big head. So here again, here's a bald eagle with a lot of head sticking out in the front and as much tail sticking out behind. Compare that with a golden eagle. Not very much head sticking out in the front, but a lot of tail sticking out behind. So a very short head projection, but a long tail projection in the wintertime in the right habitat could mean a golden eagle. But this particular view right there with a short wing profile or a short head profile also kind of reminds us of a turkey vulture as well. And we'll look at that in a minute. But here's another golden eagle with a short head projection and that white in the outer part of the wing. Here's an adult golden eagle. They don't have the white in the outer part of the wings. What are we going to use for a field mark? Well, then we're going to look at the golden nape and the white on that golden leading edge of the wing. Saw that one. Here's that turkey vulture. I put the turkey vulture in there because one of that short head profile, and more importantly, also because of the way they hold their wings. We call that a dihedral or a shallow V. When bald eagles soar, they hold their wings out flat as a board. Vultures hold their wings up like this. Golden eagles are like this. So not flat like a bald eagle, but not up like a vulture, but in between. So anytime when we're looking in the wintertime and we see a bird with a slight dihedral, and our first thought is, oh, possibly a turkey vulture, pretty uncommon to see turkey vultures in our area in the winter months, but it is fairly common to see those golden eagles with a slight dihedral and a short head projection, very similar to a vulture. Bald eagles, they stand out in the landscape. We can see them a mile away sometimes. The golden eagles, they really do blend in with the landscape. And as I mentioned earlier, they often look like squirrels' nests sitting up in a tree. I want to point out one thing here, one last ID thing. Notice how the bald eagle is very blocky in shape, okay? Bald eagle starts with a B, so they're blocky in shape. Golden eagles, much more of a tapered shape to them, more like a red-tailed hawk, more shapely compared to that bald eagle's very blocky shape. So even from a distance, a dark bird with a blocky shape is probably a bald eagle. A dark bird in the distance with more of a shape like this could be a red tail, or it could be a golden eagle because they have a very similar shape profile when perched in a tree. All right, it's time for a test here. It's the end of the program. For those of you that are still with me, it's the end of the program, but it's time for a test. So we're going to test you here. You can call them out in your own homes. I'm not going to grade you, but here's your first photo. Okay, so we have a bird with a fairly short head projection, a little bit of a golden nape, no white in the axillaries or the wing pits, but a lot of white out here. So we have a golden eagle, juvenile golden eagle. Here we have a golden eagle. Notice the golden nape, golden nape. So that is a golden eagle with its back to us. In this particular picture, we have over here, we have a bird with white in the wing pits. So we're looking at a juvenile bald eagle. It's got the deodorant on. This bird has white in the outer area of the wrist, but not near the body. Doesn't have the deodorant on. So that is a juvenile golden eagle. So once again, juvenile bald eagle, juvenile golden eagle. Next, everybody should be looking at the feathered legs, and also the golden nape. Tricolored beak is a little bit harder to see, but overall that kind of looks like a small beak comparatively. Remember, the bald eagles can have that big, massive Jimmy Durante schnoz. Everybody? I'm hoping everybody says bald eagle because that makes me feel really good that we are moving really well. No, I'm just kidding. I know you know this one. All right, what do we got here? So we've got a golden nape. We've got some feathered legs, but we've got some other things. So remember, use more than one field mark or maybe even 2 field marks. Use habitat, use location, and use other identification features besides just one field mark. Yes, I know. All right, one more. Here we go. We've got a golden top of the head, but yet it's got white here and it's got bald legs. So it's got to be a bald eagle, right? But what about that gold? Well, when we look at that, the gold is really just on the top of the head. Remember I said young bald eagles can have gold in a variety of places sometimes, but it's not restricted to the nape area the way it would be on a golden eagle. So once again, this is a juvenile bald eagle, white in the wing pits, bald legs, and a pretty big dark beak. All right, this I think is the last one. Everybody got this one? Give you a minute to look it all over, see all the field marks. First thing we probably notice is the bald legs. We notice it does have some gold here, but it's not on the nape. That beak is really big, and it has white in the axillary. So everybody agrees that that is a juvenile bald eagle? Right. Good job. You all are now much better at making identifications than the person at Theodore Roosevelt National Park who put up this billboard with this photo right there that we just looked at with this headline. Don't forget to look up. Golden eagles glide high on thermal air currents. Well, we all know that person made a mistaken identification. So remember, everybody does always use more than one field mark. And it's okay to say, you know what? I don't know what kind of eagle that is, but you know what? It's really cool to see. Well, I hope none of you are all like this right at this point and had enough of me and ready to move on. But I want to thank you so much for the following folks for sharing photos with me over the years. Once again, I want to thank all the members of Coulee Audubon that have helped with the survey numerous times over the years. I really appreciate that support. We have over a 95% retention rate of surveyors for a citizen science project. To have 95% retainment of surveyors, that is an amazing success story. Thank you so much for that. If you have questions, I'd be willing to listen to those questions. If you don't want to ask those questions tonight, you can always send me an email or send me give me a phone call. I'm old fashioned. I don't have a cell phone, but I have a phone. You can give me a call. If you're interested in helping out with the survey and would like to learn more about that, you can send me an email at golden@nationaleaglecenter.org. I'll get you hooked up onto our email list. I'll let you know when we're doing training sessions for next year's survey, but it's always the 3rd Saturday in January. The survey is always the 3rd Saturday in January. And hopefully with all the restrictions we lifted, hopefully we can get back together again. We can join together because it's always fun to get together in groups and out scavenging the countryside looking for golden eagles. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to you. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer those, but I know I've kept you here well into the night. Even the fire trucks have left. And so, but I'm still here and you're still here. So thank you so much for that. Any questions?
Well, thank you very much, Scott. That was awesome. That was great, especially some of how far they're migrating from place to place. I mean, wow, it's a very fascinating species. I know I've been on some of the golden eagle tours you've led, and those have been amazing. I highly encourage anybody watching to go on those when we can be doing those again. So it was great. And yeah, I mean, if anybody has any questions, please take yourself off mute and ask Scott or follow up with him later.
Yeah, I would, well, until somebody asks if they want, I would just say, it's really, yes, thanks to you guys, because like I said, many of you have helped with the survey over the years or will help in the future. And it's because of you guys that we have changed the maps and we've changed our understanding of this species here in Minnesota, Wisconsin. And as I shared with you, all the way across the eastern United States. I did mention, that they've put hundreds of birds with transmitters, but we put the first transmitter on the bird here in Minnesota about the same time that they did the first one out east as well. So we were right on the cusp of learning all of this together, and you guys were all a part of that. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great. The impact that people can have.
I see Roger has his hand up. No, he doesn't anymore. You're just waving at me. Hi, Roger. Thank you for your help. Yes.
On the driftless area.
Yeah. The Wilsons are off mute. Any questions, Wilsons?
Bravo, loved it.
She just wants you to hear the applause. So.
Oh,
Beautiful.
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, folks. Nice to see you again. Yep.
Cool. Well, I mean, if nobody has any questions, then yeah, thank you very much, Scott, for your time, and looking forward to coming up and learning about why Wonder Woman is in the National Eagle Center.
That's right. I know it's preying on your mind. Yes.
Oh, I see what you did there. Nice pun. Praying. I got it. Good
Hey.
stuff.
Hey, I can come up with a few.
Yeah. I'm telling you, that was awesome.
Oh, now I got a compadre there to work with. Yes, we'll go on the road. Who wants to do the rim shot?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
All right. Thanks,
Last
folks.
chance for questions.
Thank you so much, Scott. Great program.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, folks. I really appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thanks, Scott. It was a terrific
Bye now.
program.
Thank you. Thank you, folks. All of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye, thanks.
All right, everybody.
Awesome.
Then we will see you all next month.
All
Good
right.
night.
Thanks, Jonathan.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
everybody.
I don't know. Let's see. Fun stuff on the phone.